Hi, welcome to my video on the vertex form of a parabola. Vertex form of a parabola, y equals a outside of x minus h all squared plus k, where the vertex has the coordinates of h comma k, and also the vertex is noted as ht and vt as the horizontal translation, vertical translation. The absolute value of a is the vertical stretch, which is positive. And if a is greater than 0, the parabola opens up. If a is less than 0, the parabola opens down. Let's find the equation in the vertex form for each below. We have an example, a. 1, 4 is a vertex, so that means y equals, and this is the h and the k, so that's an x minus 1 plus 4. Because when we have a vertex, the x coordinate is the opposite when we put it in the equation. And the vertical stretch is 3, so that's the a value. And it opens up, so it's a plus. So there's the equation. B, the vertex is -2, -3, so y equals, and we put a bracket, so it's a -2, so it's an x plus 2 squared minus 3. So notice we changed the -2 to a +2, but not the -3. The vertical stretch is 6, and it opens down, which is going to make it negative. And C, we have an HT, so that's the H is equal to 7. And we have the VT, so we have the K is equal to -1. So Y equals, and we have a bracket, so that's a 7, so that's a -7 going into for the x, and that's a -1. So we changed the 7 to a -7, but not the vertical translation. It opens down, and opens down is a negative, and the vertical stretch is a half. So there's the equation. That's the vertex form. Again, y equals a outside of x minus h all squared plus k. Write the parabola equation in the vertex form for each of these. The vertex is y equals, and we got a 4 comma 0, so that's x minus 4 squared plus 0. The vertical stretch is 7, so the a is 7. Opens up means a positive, and the equation can be simplified to 7x minus 4 squared plus 0. You don't have to put in. And number 2, we have a horizontal stretch, so that's your x value, so that's -2, so that's a +2 in the equation. The horizontal translation, vertical translation is 3, so that's a +3. Opens down, which means it's a negative, but the vertical stretch, if not mentioned, is a 1, so that's just a negative with a 1. And number 3, the vertex is 9, -4, so it's y equals, we have a bracket, so 9 is the vertex, so it's a -9 in the equation, and a -4, so we change the sign of this one, but not this one. The vertical stretch is 2, so that's a 2, and it opens down, so it's a minus. Reflected in the x-axis is the same as saying it opens down, so the equation has a minus, because it's reflected, goes downward. The vertical stretch is 3, so a is 3. Translated 2 down and 1 right. Well, 1 right, that's 2 down, that's your vertical translation. This is your horizontal translation. So 1 to the right is positive, so we make it a negative in the equation. And 2 down is a minus. So that's the equation in the vertex form. Find the equation in the vertex form given the vertex and a point on the parabola. Well, what I do, I write the equation down, and the equation is y equals a outside of x minus h all squared plus k. So I do one at a time. I fill in the h and the k first, given my vertex. So I go y equals a, and it's an x minus 1 squared plus 3. Remember, change the 1 to a -1 squared plus 3. Then I put in the values of x and y after. So y is 21 and x is 4. Again, I fill in the h and the k first, and then I fill in the coordinates of x and y after. And then I take my time and work it out. So I have a 21, and that's 3 being squared, because we got to do PEMDAS. We got to do the inside of the bracket first. So that gives me 21, and we got, that's an a. 3 squared is a 9, so it's a 9a plus 3, and we'll continue. So we have negative 9a equals 3 minus 21. Move the variable to the left and numbers to the right and change. Negative 9a equals negative 18. Divide by negative 9, and we get a is 2. So we fill in the equation. A is 2, and the vertex goes in as x minus 1 squared plus 3. Again, I copy these down as this is the h and this is the k, this is the x and that's the y. This is still an x and a y, but it's a special one because it's a part of the vertex. So y equals a outside of x minus h squared plus k. So I fill in my vertex first, and I have x, so that's a plus 2, and we have plus a 0. Then I fill in the values of x and y. Y is negative 3, x is negative 1, plus a 0, we don't need it. So we got a negative 3a, so that's 1 being squared. So negative 3, 1 being squared is 1a. So a is negative 3. So a is negative 3, and we have an x plus 2 squared plus a 0, and we don't need the 0. Okay, so I've done 2. So you follow pattern, and you pause your video and you work out these 2. So y equals a outside of x minus h all squared plus k. This is the h, and this is the k, this is the x, and that's the y. So I'll fill in my h. I fill in the h and k first. So that's a 4, so that becomes a minus 4. That's a 1, that stays plus. Then I fill in the x and y. Y is 13, and x is 6. And then I do PEMDAS. I do inside the brackets first to get a 2, and then I square it after. So 2 squared is 4, so that's 4a plus 1. And continue up here, and I get a negative 4a equals 1 minus 13. Negative 4a is negative 12. Divided by negative 4, a becomes 3. So a is 3, so put 3 in the place of a. And the equation got a 4 and a 1, so there's an x minus 4 squared plus 1. So that's the equation in the vertex form. And we have another one to do. So again, this is h comma k. This is my x and y, the way I do it. So y equals a outside of x minus h all squared plus k. And I fill in my h and k first. That's a negative 3, so that becomes a plus 3. And that becomes a minus 2. Again, the sign changes. See, when you put h in here, to be a negative 3, the negative on negative makes it positive. Now I put the y in as negative 4. X is negative 5. And I have to do the brackets first to give me negative 2. And then I have to square. Negative 2 squared is 4, so it's a 4a minus 2. And we can go up here. So negative 4a equals negative 2 plus 4. Remember, the variables, the way I do it, I move my variables to the left and my numbers to the right, and I change the signs. So negative 4a equals 2 divided by negative 4, and cancels. A is negative a half. So the equation, a is negative a half, and minus minus 3 becomes a plus 3 minus 2 equation of the parabola in the vertex form. Okay, let's continue. Find the equation of each parabola in vertex form, but this time I gave you a graph. So what we do from a graph, we have to find the vertex. So the vertex of this graph is right here, is the peak point. So the vertex is x is 1, y is 3. So x is 1, y is negative 3. So I write down the equation, y equals a outside of x minus h all squared plus k. And so h and k are the coordinates of the vertex, so y equals a, and it's an x, that's a 1, so it's a minus 1. That's a minus 3, stays the same. Now I have to pick another point. Pick any other point on the parabola. So you could pick this point. This point right here is 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 2, negative 5. Or you could pick this point right here, which is 0, negative 5. So anytime I put a point in, I like to put the 0 in. So I could put either one of these two in. So I'm going to pick this one. So y is negative 5. And x is 0. And again, I work out the brackets first, give me negative 1. Then I have to square it next, and that gives me negative 1 squared is 1, so it's an a, 1a. So negative a equals negative 3 plus 5. Negative a equals 2. Divide by negative 1, and I get a equals negative 2. So the equation becomes y equals negative 2, and the vertex is an x minus 1 squared minus 3. That's the equation in the vertex form. And this time I gave you a table of values, but working on the table of values, we find that this is a 4 and a 4. This is a 13 and a 13. So that means this must be my vertex, because the vertex is the y value is symmetrical. The 1 is in the middle of the 2 4s and the 3. So the vertex is a negative 2, 1. Negative 2, 1 from the table. So y equals a x minus h all squared plus k. That's the h and the k. So we sub it in. Negative 2 becomes a plus 2, plus 1. Again, just to remind you, if you took the negative 2 and moved it right here, you get a negative of a negative as a positive. But we always change this sign, putting it into the equation. And we pick another ordered pair, so we can pick the 1 and the 4. So let's pick 1 and 4. X is 1, y is 4. Y is 4, x is 1. Y is 4, x is 1. We work out the exponent or the bracket first. Then we work out, that's a 4. Got to be careful now, I'm going too fast. That's a 4. And I square the bracket or the work out my exponent next. So that's an a. So 3 squared is 9. So it's a 9a plus 1. Move the 9a over and move the 4. And we get a 9a equals negative 3. Divide by negative 9. The 9's cancel. A becomes 1 over 3. So the equation a is 1/3. And negative 2 becomes a plus 2 and plus 1. And you notice, just to go back to this equation, when you put a negative 2 in the place of this x right here, negative 2 plus 2 is 0. 0 squared is 0. Negative 3 times 0 is 0. And we get 0 plus 1 is 1. So negative 2 will give me the 1, which is my vertex. And let's continue. And the vertex form, which is this what is, this is y equals ax, y equals a times x minus h all squared plus k. This is the vertex form. But to get the y-intercept, we let x equals 0, because the y-intercept is on the y-axis, and on the y-axis, the x coordinate is always 0. So we put a 0 in the place of x, and we solve for y, and that will give us the y-intercept. 0 minus 1 is negative 1, and we do the square next, which is negative 1, so that gives me 3 times 1. Then we multiply to give me 3, and we get 7. So the y-intercept is 7, and that's the point 0, 7, because we put 0 in. So the y-intercept is 7, or you can write down 0, 7. And we do the same in this one. We let x equal 0. So we put 0 in the place of x and take our time and work it through. So 0 is in the place of x. We get a 4, because we always do inside the brackets first. Then we square next, and that gives us 4 squared is 16. Then we multiply next by PEMDAS. We get negative 8 minus 1, negative 9. So the y-intercept is negative 9. Or we got x is 0, y is negative 9. Either way you want to say it. So to get the y-intercept, you just let x equal 0 in any equation. So how do we get the x-intercept? Well, the x-intercept is when we let y equals 0. Because an x-intercept is x comma 0. So we let the y equal 0. And when we let the y equal 0, we take our time and work it out. So I can square this out, but I notice I have, let's do this way. Let's move this over. All of this over, make it a minus. Divide by negative 2 on each side. We get x minus 3 squared equals 1. Because that's a square, I can go x minus 3 equals plus or minus root 1. So x equals 3 plus or minus root of 1 is 1. So I bring the 3 over. So x is equal to 3 plus 1 or 3 minus 1. So x is equal to 4 or 2. That's the x-intercept of this graph. And we do the same here. How do you get the x-intercepts? You let y equal 0 and solve the equation. And we can do this one two ways. You can do it by moving the x squared over, divide by negative 1, and we get x squared equals 4, and x equals plus or minus the root of 4. X is plus or minus 2. Or we could have factored x squared minus 4 is x, x plus minus 2 and 2, x plus 2 equals 0, or x minus 2 equals 0, x is negative 2, or x is 2. So you can do it this way or this way. This is when you factor it and you let each factor equal 0, or this is when you, because you have a square, you can do the square root of, well, when you got that, I can put that in. So if that's x squared equals 4, the square root of x squared is plus or minus square root of 4. So the square root of x squared is x. I bet sometimes you leave this step out. You don't, when you get used to it, you just do the square root automatically. And in this form, we want to let y equal 0. Again, we notice we have a bracket. So we move the negative to the left side. That's a negative, so make it a positive. And then we got a square, so we do the square root of both sides. Plus or minus the 9. Square root of x plus 1 squared is x plus 1. Plus or minus 3. X equals negative 1 plus or minus 3. X is negative 1 plus 3, or negative 1 minus 3. So x equals 2 or negative 4. And we want to work this one out. Again, we want to find the x-intercept, so we let y equals 0. Now sometimes what we can do with the equation, watch, I'm going to do it two ways. You can take this equation and flip the whole equation around. If 0 equals x squared plus 1, flip the equation around, x squared plus 1 equals 0. Then you can, let's move the 1 over, make it minus. Square root of x squared equals plus or minus the square root of a negative 1. Square root of x squared is x, plus the square root of negative 1 is an I. And I'll solve this, okay, I'll continue here. Because that's an imaginary number, that means what? That you have no x-intercepts. Because when you have an imaginary number, when you're solving, you don't have any real numbers, so it doesn't cut the x-axis. And okay, that's another way. That's one way. We could solve this one by, we can't factor it, but we can solve it by the quadratic formula. You got 1 x squared plus 0x plus 1 and equals 0. So x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And you got a 0 for b, so this is 0 plus or minus 0 squared minus 4. A is 1, C is 1, all over 2 times 1, 0 plus or minus, and you work this out, you get a 0 minus 4 is minus 4 all over 2, 0 plus or minus 2i over 2, and you get 0 plus or minus I, and the answer is plus or minus I. Again, that means that there's no x-intercepts because you got an imaginary number. Just move that over a bit there, just to make sure. So it's negative 4 plus or minus 1. A is 1 and C is 1. That's filled in there because I didn't go over far enough when I was showing it. I'll just show it now. And just to show you also, in relation to this graph, watch this. Notice that this is y equals x squared plus 0x plus 1. So notice the y-intercept. So when you let x equal 0, y is 1. When x equals 0, y is 1. So all the values of x that you put in here and squaring it, all real numbers, the y is always above that. So notice that's your vertex. Your vertex is your negative b over 2a that we worked out earlier. So if x equals negative b over 2a, that's 0 over 2 times 1. So that's 0 over 2 is 0. So the x coordinate of your vertex is 0. So if the x coordinate is 0, putting a 0 back in here, you get a 1. So this is a parabola whose vertex is at 1, 0. And since it's going upward, that means all y's in this graph, all y's in this equation, the values of x, no matter what numbers you put in, real numbers, the y is always positive. So that's why there's no x-intercept. Just want to mention that. And that brings us to the end of looking at the vertex formula for a parabola. If you like my video, click the like button, subscribe button, and notification bell because there's more videos coming. And visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content on my YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained. Thank you for viewing my video.